requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
Thank you. Madam President.
Senator from Michigan.
I rise today to encourage all of my colleagues to support the motion to proceed that is in front of us. We might disagree about the underlying bill. In fact, we do disagree. Republicans and Democrats disagree about the underlying bill. But that fact shouldn't prevent us from even having the discussion about the bill and about the issue. It's what we were sent here to do, to talk about the important issues that face the American people. I can't think of anything more important, anything more fundamental to our democracy than the freedom to vote. And that's what we're talking about, the freedom to vote. We are sent here to make our best arguments, to try to persuade members who don't see the issue in the same way that we do, and in the end, to vote on important legislation like the bill that is in front of us to protect our freedom to vote as Americans. I want to thank Senator Manchin for being willing to engage in this process in good faith and for his hard work on the issue. I have to wonder why my Republican colleagues won't do the same. What are they so afraid of? It's hard to believe that they're afraid of even having the debate, Are they afraid that if the American people hear both sides, that the American people will figure out what they're trying to do? After all, the aim of the For the People Act is simply to protect Americans' freedom to vote and ensure their voices are heard. Sadly, these rights are under attack all across the country, including Michigan. State lawmakers have introduced at least 389 bills to make it harder to vote in 48 states. And in 2021, at least 14 states have enacted 22 new laws to take away people's freedom to vote. It's clear this is part of a coordinated nationwide assault on a fundamental right that my friend, the late Congressman John Lewis, called precious, almost sacred. Right now in Michigan, Republicans in the legislature are trying to push through a package of bills that will make it much harder for people to vote. Some analysts have even described the bills as being worse than the ones in Georgia, except we aren't watching them try to criminalize water. Why are they doing this in Michigan? Well, let me go back a bit. Michigan is traditionally a ticket-splitting state, what you would call a purple state. In 2010, Michigan elected a Republican governor. 2 years later, Michigan helped give President Barack Obama a second term. 2 years later, we reelected the Republican governor. And 2 years later, Michigan supported Donald Trump by the narrowest margin of any state, just over 10,000 votes. After that election, Democrats did not start a massive effort to take away people's freedom to vote. We got to work. We organized. We listened to people about their concerns. And we worked hard to gain people's support for the next election. That's what you usually do, rather than trying to stop people from voting. We did that hard work in Michigan, and you know what? We won the next election. In 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, more people in Michigan voted than ever before. 5.5 million of us. And Michigan voters clearly and resoundingly chose Joe Biden to be our next president and Kamala Harris to be our next vice president of the United States and the president of the Senate. They won by more than 150,000 votes. That's 14 times Donald Trump's margin in 2016. But what did the Trump campaign do? Well, their campaign, his allies filed 8 lawsuits in our state, lost every one of them. And in the only case that was appealed to the Michigan Supreme Court, the court declined to hear the case despite having a majority of Republican justices. Republicans know that Michigan's election was fair, the results were accurate, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won our state. The people of Michigan voted. Michigan counties verified it. Our state certified it. There was no evidence of fraud that would begin to suggest that we need legislation like what Michigan Republicans are pushing. The Republicans just didn't like who Michiganders voted for. That's the same thing that's happening here. Republican colleagues don't like being in the majority, or minority. They don't like who people voted for. Well, you have a choice. You can work hard, try to gain people's trust, try to do things for people, win the next election, or you can try to take away their freedom to vote. When we think about it, think about the fact, in Michigan, Republicans didn't like who we voted for, so they're coming after the voters. They're coming after the voters. We know this is happening all across the country. It's wrong. It's un-American, frankly. And that's why we need this legislation, to protect our freedom to vote and to stop billionaires from buying elections. We are committed to making sure people have their freedoms protected. And we are committed to making sure that billionaires are not buying our elections as well. We want to end the partisan gerrymandering that makes people's votes count. Some count more than others, or rig the system. And we're committed to making sure that the wealthiest people in the country are not buying elections. Why is this important? We've seen how so-called dark money groups that don't have to report anything, funded by a handful of billionaire donors, pour unlimited amounts of money into our elections in an attempt to influence the outcome. It's easy to understand why the average voter might feel like their voice isn't being heard. The For the People Act takes crucial steps to give voters their voices back. It improves disclosure requirements so that citizens have a right to know who's given the money. Who's behind those dark money donations? It reforms the Federal Election Commission so they can better enforce the election laws already on the books. And it takes steps to protect our elections from foreign influence. I, for one, think these are essential to our democracy. I know my Senate Democratic colleagues feel the same. However, Senate Republican colleagues disagree. So let's pass this motion to proceed so we can talk about it, so we can have a debate about it. Michigan voters made their voices heard. The American people made their voices heard in the election. We need to be debating this issue and make sure that our voices are being heard across the country. Madam President, I yield the floor. I would suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.